A few days ago, I was broke and hungry. I was on my way to the roadside to use my last bit of money to buy kinky. There were other people there before me, and so I was standing in the queue waiting for my turn when a car pulled up beside the kinky seller. The car door opened and a man and a woman got out of the car. I was standing on the other side of the kinky seller, and so I didn't see the man till he walked to the other side. He looked very familiar, like an old colleague of mine I went to the university with. Without thinking, I called out his name and he turned towards me. I could see he recognized me, but he was not happy to see me. I knew why, and I will get into that soon. As for me, I was very happy to see him. I felt like this was a miracle from God. He was dressed very neat and he looked well groomed. He looked like someone who had money. I immediately ran to where he was standing. I shook his hand and told him it's been a while. He fake smiled at me and looked me up and down. He asked me how I was doing and I told him I was managing. I looked at the woman he was standing with and she was also looking at me up and down with a look of disgust on her face. I didn't blame her. I looked very bad. Things have been going very bad for me since I lost my job about 6 months ago. My father was very sick, and since I was the eldest, I was the one taking care of my mom and siblings. I've searched and searched but couldn't find a good job to do. And so I was just doing small menial jobs left and right to sustain myself and my family. The clothes I was wearing was faded and the shirt had small holes in it. My slippers were also worn out. I was really struggling. I tried to shake the woman's hand as I introduced myself, but she just nodded her head without shaking my hand. My friend excused himself and went to the booth to bring down some boxes, and I immediately went to help him. I don't know what were in the boxes, but they were very heavy. After bringing down all the boxes, I asked him if we could talk on the side, away from his woman. But he told me they were in a hurry. He asked me for my number and told me he will call me so that we can talk more. I told him it was very important, and I was beginning to get angry, and he could see that. He pulled me to the side and told me to give him my number, and I did. Then he pulled out 100 cedis notes and gave it to me. He said he knows we have a lot to talk about, but he didn't want to talk about it in front of his woman. I was about to talk when his woman started to walk towards us and told him she wanted to buy something from the other street. She looked at me and asked me if I can watch their boxes and bags for them. I really needed to talk to my friend, and so I nodded yes. Without even saying thank you, she put the bags she was holding into my hand and started pulling my friend away, and they crossed the street. I felt like seeing my friend was a sign things were going to change for me, and he looked like he had money. I looked at the 100 cedis notes, smiled, and put it into my pocket. I stood beside the boxes for about 30 minutes, and they were still not back. I was hungry, and the bags she gave me were also very heavy, but I didn't care. I just couldn't wait for my friend to come back so that I can talk to him. I ended up sitting on the pavement when they were still not back after 1 hour. I received a call from an unknown number, and it was my friend. He told me they didn't get what they went to buy at the place they went to, and so they are going to another part of the town to check if they will get some. He begged me to wait a little and that they will be back soon. I told him not to worry and that I will wait for them. Now, as I was sitting on the pavement waiting, I stretched my leg to make myself more comfortable when my feet hit one of the heavy bags beside me. The zip was only half closed, and so some of the contents of the bag spilled out. I started to put the things back into the bag when I noticed a brown envelope inside the bag, and there were some money notes peeking out. I brought out the envelope, and it was filled with 200 cedis notes. My mind started racing. Hey, what do I do? This is the money I need. Oh. I looked at the envelope and looked around. Then I put the envelope back into the bag. After a few minutes, I took it out again, And then I put it back. I needed the money. And even though I tried to resist it, I couldn't. I took the envelope out again and counted 5,000 cedis, which was almost all the money in the envelope. I put the 5,000 cedis into my pocket and put the envelope back into the bag. Then I stood up, went to the kinky seller, and asked her to wash the boxes and bags for me, and that the owners will be coming for them soon. She said okay, and I thanked her and walked away. Now, before you call me a thief, let me explain myself. So, a little background story. I met my friend in the university, level 100. Let's call him A. We were all offering the same course, and on the first day of school, we happened to sit beside each other. We kind of became good friends on campus. Later, about three other guys joined our friend group. Among all of them, A was from a very wealthy family. At least, that is what he told us. He was always dressed in the best clothes, and he sometimes drove his own car to campus. We used to call him DB. He was always bragging about how his family traveled around the world and how he was going to work in his father's company in the USA after he was done with school. I was the complete opposite. I was on a scholarship in the school, and my other needs were being sponsored by my church. My parents were living from hand to mouth, and so I didn't have any of the luxury he had. I was working part-time in school with a photocopy shop next to my school. Now, in the last semester of our final year in school, I was in the photocopy shop when A came inside. He told me he needed 5,000 cedis urgently. The payment of the school fees deadline was that day, and his dad was having some issues with his bank. I was like, you pa, where am I going to find 5,000 cedis for you? Like, you know my situation. I don't have it. I asked them to go ask our friends, and he said he has already asked them, and they said they didn't have. He was desperate, and the deadline was in a few hours' time. He asked me to give him money from the photocopy shop. My boss was not around, and he will not be coming back the whole day. I knew A had money. And so, when he told me his father will sort things out with the bank before the close of the day, and that he will get the money back for me before my boss comes back the next day, I believed him. Against my better judgment, I counted 5,000 cedis out of the shop's money for him. He told me he would send the money before I closed the shop that day. But by the time closing time came, I had still not heard anything from him. I called him, and he told me his dad was not able to sort things out with the bank that day, and that by tomorrow he would have received the money from his dad. And I was like, no, this is not what you told me. My boss will be in the shop early in the morning. I needed the money before then. He promised to get it for me before my boss comes in the morning, but I didn't hear from him again. He also stopped picking my calls. The next day, my boss found out 5,000 cedis was missing from the shop, and all hell broke loose. The only thing that saved me was the fact that we were in the same church together. He almost involved the police. He thought I had stolen his money. And all this while, A was not picking my calls, and I was also not seeing him on campus. A few days later, he blocked my number. I asked the other guys in the friend group to call him, and he ended up blocking their numbers too. Since I didn't have the money to pay my boss back, I have to work for him for free till I paid him back all the money. And this man was paying me 500 cedis for a month. And so I had to work for him for 10 months for free. And I didn't see or hear from A till we graduated. Now, about 30 minutes after I left the kinky seller's place, I received a call from A. I could see he was trying to calm his voice on the phone. He asked me if I had gone through the bags he left for me and if I had taken 5,000 cedis out of it. And I said yes. I told him I took it as payment for the money he borrowed from me all those years ago. He said the money did not belong to him and that it was for the girl he was working with. I told him to just top up the money for her then. He kept quiet for some time, and then he started begging me to meet up with him. He said the girl was not yet his girlfriend and that he was still trying to win her over. He said the money belonged to the girl's father, who was a military man, and they had gone to the bank to withdraw it for him. The girl was very angry with him, and she said she was going to tell her father he was the one who took the money. He asked me to give him the money back and that he will send my money to me first thing tomorrow morning. I was like, no, send it to the girl instead because I'm not giving you the money back. When he realized begging me is not going to work, he threatened to come after me with the police. He was still talking when I cut the line on him and blocked his number. He doesn't know my house, and even if he finds out where I live, I'll be ready for him. Am I the asshole? I think you should have taken interest too. Fake DB. If you had given the money back to him, what I would have done to you through the phone, through the phone. Don't mind him. If you had given the money back to him, he would have taken the money and that would have been the end. You would never hear from him again. And when he met you, he had the audacity to give you 100 CDs when he was owing you 5,000 CDs. And how were you able to keep calm when you saw him after what he did to you all those years ago? But at the end of the day, it was a good thing you were calm too. You see, God blessed you. God gave you back your money. Hopefully, the 5,000 CDs will help you turn things around in your life. Don't mind him. He doesn't have the money. Let the military man deal with him. And you know these military men, they don't take shit. He really needs to be punished for what he did to you. If he has the money, he should just go and top it up for the girl. You are not the asshole.